We might as well have some fun with Excel in this problem. This is totally not required for our course, but it's a fun set of Excel skills. So what if we say, so what shape do you get if the sum of distances from xy to negative 3, 0 and 3, 0 is constant? So I put 3 there. The sum of distances in the problem we said was 8. So I have a grid of x values here and a grid of y values. So what's the distance from negative 8, 8 to 3, 0 and negative 3, 0? So we're going to put a big old square root formula here, and that's going to be ugly, but that's okay. So the distance from that x value, and I'm going to be moving this left, right, and up, down. I want the row 8 to stay the same, but I want column C to change as we go along. So I'm going to put just the $ on 8 minus 3, and then I'm going to lock that one both row and column, square that, plus the y value, and I want column B to stay the same there, but I want row 9, 10, and 11, etc. to update. And I know I could be more careful about letting the focal points be adjustable in x and y, but that's not the point here. So that distance plus the distance of this thing again, minus that squared plus the y value minus 0 squared. So that's just computing the distance, so let's do that. Right now it's, let's see, some decimal. The decimals don't really matter, so it's actually kind of nicer to hide them. And then I'm going to fill that in my grid. So I'm going to go down and then autofill over. And it's kind of hard to see what's going on there. Actually, I'm pretty sure something went wrong because I'm getting larger numbers over here than I'm getting over here, but it should all be symmetric. So, you see, I shouldn't be referring to the cell directly above me there. So I must have had a problem with $ over here. See how much Excel we're learning together? So references to that cell, C8, I need a $ there. Okay, so we'll copy, paste, and now it's looking more symmetric, and you can kind of see a shape going on here. But here's a really neat Excel skill. Let's highlight that area. I'm on the Home tab. I go to Conditional Formatting, Color Scales, and then I can choose a color scale here, and it will color the cells according to the value in the cells. I want something, I know all these values are 0 or above because they're all sums of distances, which are all positive. So I'm going to choose something that just goes in a kind of unidirectional way rather than thinking, oh, some are positive, some are negative. I want to indicate what's positive and negative. And today I'm feeling more like green than red. Those are the only unidirectional scales here. So I know that one looks pretty cool, but really for perceptual purposes we should use this one. It's going from near 0 is white to, or just the smallest value in the region gets colored white, the largest value in the region gets colored green. Yeah, that's also kind of cool. Well, let's do this one. So there, it's still kind of hard to see that this gives us an ellipse. What I can do instead is change this formula so it doesn't just compute the distance. It says if the distance is greater than this criterion sum of distances, and we'll lock that, then give me a 1, otherwise give me a 0. And then we'll copy that and paste it down and over, and we get an ellipse, or at least a chunky kind of 1980s graphics version of an ellipse. But we can play with it, like change the size of the locations of the focus points to like 3.5, and then you get a wider ellipse. Change the sum of distances to something larger, you get a bigger ellipse. So that's fun. What other possible Excel skills could we learn based on this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go over to this tab and we'll learn how to do a what-if data table. So here, instead of typing some horrible square root formula and then pasting it all over, I can structure my my work to be nicer. I can say, what's my x value, what's my y value, and let me just put in like 4, 5. And then I can say, what's my distance to the first focus, what's my distance to the second focus. Actually, I could have the focus -3 and 0, a focus at 3 and 0, so I won't need this anymore. I'll just blank that out. And we'll say what's the distance. So now I can say square root of let's see, that, and lock the row minus that, and square it, plus the distance from that, lock the row minus that, square it. So I'm just doing that distance formula once, and then I can do it there again, and then I can say what's my total distance. I'll just use this to take the sum of those two. So now whatever numbers I put here and there, let me color those, I don't know, blue or something. This cell will give me the total distance from these 2 points to that point. So then I want Excel to take these numbers, x and y, paste them in there, look at this number, and then paste the result over here. So to do that, I'm going to use a feature called a what if data table. In this cell, you see there's a blank cell kind of at the upper left corner of this table. I'm going to say equals that, and I'm going to give that a special color just because it's a different kind of thing than these and those. Then I'm going to highlight this whole data table, everywhere I want this to go, and go to the data tab up here, what if analysis, data table, and here it says where should I put numbers from the row you gave me, where should I put numbers from the column you gave me. So these row values are x values, so I'm going to say put those here. Row number values from the column are going to go here in the y value. And what it will do is it'll take each of these in turn, paste it into the x value and the y value, then look at this number, which came from there, but it doesn't really care about that. It just cares about what's in the upper left. And then it will copy that to the corresponding row and column that it just got the x and y values from. So I'll hit OK, and it fills all that in. I already had the conditional formatting in there. So we get that same thing as before. So this is kind of like a iterated for loop, a for loop inside a for loop, if you know programming. And I can change this formula from just the sum to something like if the sum is greater than that number, then 1, otherwise 0. And then it just redoes the entire computation. So data tables are great. They can end up taking a lot of time to compute. So there are options when you're doing computations to tell it, don't update the data tables when you're updating all the other computations on the sheet. So that's just something to watch out for. Let's actually show that option under the Formulas tab. Go to Calculation Options. You see Automatic, which is what it should be usually, but you can also set it to Automatic except for data tables. And then to refresh the data table, you have to explicitly tell it to recalculate by pressing F9 on a Windows machine or Command equals on a Mac. But I'll just leave it for automatic because these data tables themselves that I just did don't take very long.